Okay, James Agee. I am a big fan of James Agee. Your host for this evening is Prismo, the book cat, one of two book cats. If you don't pet Prismo, she is not okay with that. She was get like really scandalized. What? You're not petting me? She's just making so many noises at me off camera. And then she's like a total hedonist. She'll let you just pet her for like an hour. I'm like, my hand's getting tired. Great cat. And here's Baby Squirrel, her daughter. Baby Squirrel's dad was this rough and tough tomcat named Dusty. But yeah, somehow I amassed a James Agee library. I'm like, whoa, I guess I really like this writer. This is not literary work, but journalistic work. He had that facet. He'd write about like dams or anthropological topics. A very interesting and specific book, The Creative Process of James Agee. People really obsess over James Agee. I think he achieves an effect that people really wonder at. How'd you do that? Like, not every author gets books like this. This looks like such a good memoir, and it's this great, like, library-treated copy, all nicely wrapped in plastic. And I've read other books by this author, Lawrence Bergreen. He also wrote about Magellan and about Al Capone. And I interviewed him about his Al Capone book because I was writing an article about Al Capone's hideout in the Jemez Mountains. Squirrel down a little fountain. I've sat down. Do you ever just sit down and read like a chapter or two from a book? I do that often. I've done that with many of my books. And so sometimes I want to be like, I've read that when it was just something more like that. I really like what I read from this. Because Agee was a really difficult figure to write about. He was an immoderate drinker, but he was a really interesting person. A cool tribute to him. Beautiful old book. When I used to trade books on paperbackswap.com, I had the keyword James Agee saved, and so I would always get told whenever anybody posted anything James Agee related in that system. I got a lot of stuff through that. People want to remember him and make sense of him. He was also a gone too soon person, you know. There's a memoir by his wife. I think just one of his wives. He might have had more than one. By Alma. I knew a bookstore owner, Morwin of Birdsong Used Books in Albuquerque, who had briefly been a part of Alma's family. I mean, who gets this kind of fandom? It's wild. James Agee, he really inspires something in people. But it's like a quiet, private fandom. Where are all the Agee heads, you know? One time I was at a Jiffy Lube, and an older lady there was reading A Death in the Family, and I was like, what? I never see people reading Agee in the wild. I couldn't believe it. And I was so excited, and she was just, like, annoyed at me. I was reading an identical copy to this one. Same edition. This is so autobiographical. James Agee is a character in this, a nonfiction figure in this, Making of the African Queen. He was one of the screenwriters on it, though his input has been questioned on the African Queen. Apparently he was drinking a bit during that time. This looks like such an interesting biography. It looks like a psychological biography almost. The Restless Journey of James Agee. First major critical biography of him. In a very real sense, his life was his most successful artistic creation. For although he had recognized very early his vocation as a writer and pursued that vocation vigorously and with great devotion, in the end he left many unfinished projects, only a few works of any note. He created a myth by living the quintessential intellectual artist life, overindulging in tobacco, alcohol, and women, and being self-destructive. Wow. Straddling the line between South and North. Hollywood and New York. Wow. Maybe he just was married once. It's fun to read a bunch of biographies about one subject. You become like an expert in a person. This I keep with the James Agee books because Walker Evans did the photography for Let Us Now Praise Famous Men. And that book is at the core of my interest in James Agee. And his photos are a great part of that book, Evans. Oh, man. Is there a more beautiful paperback than this. This is, if there were like an award for like all-time great classic literary paperback, this one's up there. You can see the art on there. Beautiful, beautiful paperback. Once, my friend Ian and I, a lifetime ago, when we had a little street art crew that did creative street art projects, my favorite thing we ever did was, sorry, digression within a digression. My favorite thing we ever did was replace this photo of a medical helicopter in a hospital lobby with a photo of an attack helicopter with missiles, and stayed up for months and months with our tags signed in the bottom corner of it, Night Route. We had a job delivering newspapers together for UNM, for the Daily Lobo, when we were both undergrads. So we'd wake up an hour early and go do some funny public art, street art type thing. Ian was a great artist, and I was happy to be like his lackey sidekick. But one thing we did was we took 2 copies of this and put together a long roll of the entire text, all taped together as a single visible roll between the 2 copies. And then we mixed up this wheat paste clear glue stuff like Mod Podge with flour and water. And we went to like near where the downtown library is, and we followed the blocks, and we put the entire book up on the wall with wheat paste. So you could have walked the whole route. It's kind of a literary act of street art. I don't know. Was any of that stuff good? We had some pieces I really liked. We turned this famous flood control dam that you can see in Breaking Bad. It's where Jesse waits to get his identity changed. The John B. Robert flood dam. We turned it with spray paint into a giant Pac-Man game with pellets and cherries and ghosts and Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man. Working all night to finish that one. And you can see traces of it in the movie Terminator Salvation when it surrounds the Terminator factory. Ha ha ha. Reality and art. But I love this book. This book is beautiful. This book will make you cry. This book gets inside the head of children experiencing grief, the grief of a parent due to a car crash, which is something that actually Agee experienced. Look at that cover. A copy of this is in the paperback project in the room, as is a copy of the Morning Watch. I kept the more fragile copy of the Morning Watch out here, but that is so beautiful. Wow, art. I would read this after Death in the Family, because Death in the Family, is about a young kid whose dad dies, and this book is about a young kid who goes away to boarding school after his dad dies. And it ends with a metaphor that might as well be carved out of stone. It's so real and hits so hard. Like, how would you show murdering your own childhood, your own innocence? Ugh, I would not usually hang on to a book when its cover gets damaged like this, but I actually think the cover is kicking around somewhere. A box of papers or something. Socorro Public Library. Huh. This is the collected short prose of James Agee. He's almost like Dylan-like in this imagery in the back. I really enjoyed this. I read a copy of this. Not this one, because the copy I read fell apart. Letter of James Agee to Father Fly. He was kind of religious, but he was like Marilyn Robinson's Gilead type of religious, like a respectable, intelligent sort that really thought about big questions. Agee is just so good. You read enough of his writing, and then you'll find yourself approaching writing as a better writer. Twice I've gone to Brooklyn and meant to read this book beforehand, and then I didn't. I think I have read it, though. It's really short. It's like reading a long article. Yeah. Brooklyn. I like a nice little hardback book like that. That's so cool. I like something that's usually published with other things published alone. It's always so satisfying. Looks like an ex-library copy. A third copy of A Death in the Family. But look at this. Actually, the fourth in the house. Beautiful. I'm getting replica vibes from this, but maybe it's original. Whoa. By the same author, Permit Me Voyage. Those are his poems from the Younger Yale Poets Prize. He got into it all really early, and I've read some short stories that he wrote when he was like 19 and 20, and they're excellent. Ugh. One I think about all the time. I forget what it's called, but he's hitchhiking with this horrible boil on his ear, and it's all I can think about. And he encourages this driver to pass by this other hitchhiker, this black man standing, dying out in the heat, just because all I can think about is the own pain of his ear. I'm like, I hope he didn't really do that. But it makes a really powerful point, like 1984, of like, physical suffering can beat so much. Destroy Your Humanity. I have not read Permit Me Voyage, I don't think. But Let Us Now Praise Famous Men is amazing, and I love The Morning Watch. This starts with a famous piece that's sometimes published by itself. My neighbors are getting rowdy. Here's an old copy of Let Us Now Praise Famous Men, a hardcover. I love this book. They lived for 6 weeks on the porches of tenant farmers in Georgia, and really poor people, and just wrote down everything about them. What had begun as an article became this massive, very stream of consciousness book that opens with many pages of photographs, wordless photographs. This thing is a unique work of art. I first read it in Guatemala, like going through all these little coffee plantation towns. Yeah, here's the photos it starts with. Walker Evans. And the photos are never really connected to the text. It's, oh my gosh. What a crazy book. This book's, I've had like a roller coaster ride relationship feelings about this book. Here's a sequel written to it by later people that follows up with some of the people and their descendants and tries to diversify the people talked with. And their children after them. Let Us Now Praise Famous Men and their children after them. I've never read this one, but it won big awards too. I think it won like the Pulitzer. This one was a little more obscure, but I think it's great. This is a very good collection of film reviews. Martin Scorsese, director, writes the introduction. However, I think he had a pretty lousy era of film to write about. I could tell he's just like, he did find some good stuff among a lot of filler and chaff and propaganda. And he reviews The Lash of the Penitentes, this 1936 movie my podcast brought back to the movie theaters right at the start of COVID. I'm like, this might be the last thing any of us see for a while. It's the story of Carl Taylor, greatly fictionalized, who was murdered in 1936, who I've written about. Anyway, it's interesting to see his In the Wild contemporary review of that. In an adults-only theater recently, I saw 2 elderly movies, The Lash of the Penitentes and Glamour for Sale. The former contains genuine and interesting shots suspended in an aspect of terrifyingly pitiful and funny ineptitudes. The latter, a melodrama about the female escort business written by John Bright, is worthless and crispy nostalgic. Well, he really made me watch more Chaplin, and he made me appreciate and watch more Eisenstein and others too. What's that guy's name? Jean Hugo. I got good recommends from this. Now, Agee on Film is a complete gear shift. His first one was it's his columns from when he was Time Magazine's movie reviewer in the 40s. This one is screenplays he wrote, and they've all aged pretty poorly, I think. I mean, I don't know. I had a really hard time getting through this one. I had a really hard time getting through his script that he wrote for Charlie Chaplin. Honestly, I would say if you were going to make that movie today with a Chaplin-esque character, I would say just take the idea. Because it's a good idea. I don't know about his writing for it. The idea is it's Charlie Chaplin's little tramp after the apocalypse, basically. After nuclear devastation and nuclear winter. It's a pretty wild idea, but kind of dry in execution. I don't know. Maybe screenplays weren't the right format for Agee. He was a very lush writer, you know. Yeah. Anytime I talk about James Agee, anytime Baby Squirrel is in the room, she loves his writing. She's not denying it. It's wild to, live on in writing, to put yourself in writing, and then never die, Even if your life becomes this weird, strange thing, this diaspora of electrical impulses of people lighting up at your work, and you're kind of back again. A hiker on a trail, taking a break. Teacher in a classroom, student at a bus stop, people in their rooms, people in waiting rooms, people in their cars, people in libraries, people escaping their lives, people who feel like they're researching something, but they're not sure what, It's a mode I'm sometimes in. I like it, James Agee. Maybe I should read a passage or something from him. Oh, he died at age 45. Uh-oh. That's literally my age. No, he didn't. I bet he lived longer than that. That's, they don't write these things down. Everyone just kind of remembers. I probably lived. This might be my favorite. This is just a powerful gem of a book. I can't believe the impact of its ending. Only Montana Gothic's ending hit me quite the way this one did. I also think The Enchanted by Elizabeth Coatsworth has something special going on there. It's a little ad for Little Snap Racers. An American masterpiece. Oh, and this book is a beautiful object. I love it. I'm excited to read this after Death in the Family as part of the paperback project. Maybe I will switch in this copy. It's just so beautiful. Look who found the bookshelf box. Excellent. We are talking now of summer evenings in Knoxville, Tennessee, in the time that I lived there so successfully disguised to myself as a child. Check this crazy part out where it's like all the sounds of a car that won't start. That's pretty wild. Winner of the Pulitzer Prize. Well, yeah. Oh, there's a really heartbreaking scene where the kids just don't understand the dad's not coming back. But okay, he's dead, but when's he coming back? I hear he was a real one. All right, James Agee. Any fans out there? I saw that Leafy Concern booktube channel likes James Agee. That's awesome. I think people do know him. Whoever that was at that Jiffy Lube. People are writing these books about remembering the guy, etc. Must be a fandom. All right, see everybody.